the Cold War suspense and espionage film directed by John Sturges and starring Rock Hudson, Patrick McGoohan, Ernest Borgnine, and Jim Brown, hit the big screens in 1968. This film was called Ice Station Zebra. The original music score was done by the incredible Michel Legrand. And when you look back on it, people have forgotten the big deal that Scottish novelist Alistair MacLean really used to be. There are at least 15 films that are based on his books, including The Guns of Navarone and Where Eagles Dare. Ice Station Zebra is an entertaining, big-budget military Cold War thriller that's fun to watch. Rock Hudson plays a nuclear submarine commander on a mission to rescue the crew of a weather station at the North Pole, but he has to deal with sabotage and treachery all along the way. The film rights to the 1963 novel were acquired the following year in hopes that they could capitalize on the success of the 1961 blockbuster from the 1957 MacLean novel, The Guns of Navarone. That was Hollywood's #2 grossing picture that year. They were interested in this story. They felt like that it would be a great production and that it would also be a commercial success. The producer, Martin Ranshoff, said that at that time they were looking for stories that had something unique to say. His company, Filmways, had a deal with MGM to provide the financing. Guns of Navarone stars Gregory Peck and David Niven were initially attached to this film, with Peck as a sub-commander and Niven as the British spy. Filming was set to begin in April of 1965, but scheduling conflicts and the objections by the U.S. Department of Defense to the original screenplay written by Paddy Chayefsky delayed the start. The Defense Department felt that there was an unfair distortion of military life in the script and that it could damage the reputations of the Navy and its personnel. A new script was then commissioned. Due to scheduling conflicts, the original cast was no longer available when filming began in the spring of 1967. Rock Hudson replaced Gregory Peck, and he was ready for a change. He had made 4 flop comedies in a row, and he was looking for something to give his image an upgrade. Ice Station Zebra was just this. Lawrence Harvey and Patrick McGoohan joined the cast as the Russian and British agents, respectively. But then in July, Ernest Borgnine replaced Harvey. There were no women in this cast. The filming began in June of 1967, and principal photography lasted for 19 weeks, with the shoot ending in October. The movie had a budget of $8 million. By the time they finished the production, the cost had risen to $10 million. The fictional nuclear-powered submarine, Tigerfish, was portrayed in the movie by the diesel-electric Guppy 2A class sub, the USS Ronquil, when it's seen on the surface. For submerging and surfacing scenes, the diesel-electric Guppy USS Blackfin was used. The underwater scenes used a model of a Skate-class nuclear submarine. The head of the art department at MGM, George Davis, spent nearly 2 years researching interior designs for the submarine. A very unique and innovative underwater camera equipment was developed for this movie by the second unit cameraman, John Stevens. He was a former U.S. Navy diver. This camera system enabled the first ever filming of a continuous submarine dive. It produced some outstanding photography for the picture. The movie's plot has similarities with the real-life 1962 CIA project called Cold Feet. It was conducted in May and June of that year, and the assignment purpose was to gather intelligence from an abandoned Soviet Arctic research station. 2 agents parachuted from a B-17, and they searched the facility and then were collected 3 days later via the Fulton surface-to-air recovery system. Patrick McGoohan was in the midst of filming his iconic TV series, The Prisoner, at the time that he appeared in this movie. In order to allow him to take time off from the TV series, a special episode was inserted. It was a hastily written secret agent episode in which McGowan's character, number 6, has his mind transferred into the body of another man. And then another episode in The Prisoner was also an altered episode which enabled the actor to finish up his work on Zebra. In that episode, number 6 wore a Sherlock Holmes deerstalker hat, mustache, and pipe, so his double, Frank Mayer, could film most of the scenes. In one of the scenes, McGowan was supposed to dive into the flooded torpedo room of the submarine to rescue a trapped naval officer. He was a strong swimmer, and he insisted on doing the scene himself rather than using a stuntman. A change was made to the script, thus allowing Olympic swimming champion Murray Rose, who had been cast in another role, to do the scene with him in case anything happened. It was only after the scene was completed that Rose revealed that while he and McGowan were standing up to their necks in the rising water just before the cameras rolled, Pat had whispered to him, "Now I've done it, my foot's stuck." Rose had to dive down and free his foot, which had become wedged tightly in the torpedo rack. As I mentioned earlier, this is definitely a stag film. There are only 3 women that appear in the entire process. One is a barmaid at the far end of the bar when Rock Hudson receives a phone call. Another is in one of the booths in the bar. And the third is seen walking with a companion, arm in arm, outside the second pub that Rock Hudson enters. Now, there are some great lines in this movie, and there's one that really sticks out to me. As the sub is going down after the torpedo room floods, one of the crew members on the bridge begins reciting a prayer out loud, but he's all of a sudden silenced by Rock Hudson's character. He looks at him and says, "Do you mind, son? We're trying to think." The prayer that he's reciting is a Catholic prayer called the Act of Contrition, which usually expresses sorrows for sins. Most of the film was shot on sound stages at Universal, but the scenes where Rock Hudson leaves the pub and drives toward the sub base is actually at the mouth of a real U.S. submarine base located at Holyloch, Scotland, where the film takes place. Now, Howard Hughes was one of the most influential people in Hollywood during his younger years. He was an innovator and a guy that wasn't afraid to spend money where he needed to. As he grew older, he became weirder and a complete recluse with absurd, obsessive-compulsive behavior. He would become obsessed with films and watch them nonstop. And that's what happened to this movie. He had such a desire to watch this film that he bought a TV station in Las Vegas. You got to remember that this was before the age of VCRs. And so his personal VCR was a television station that he owned. He would call up and tell the programming department to play Ice Station Zebra anytime he wanted to see it. And it said that they played it over 100 times. At one point later on, he was able to set up a projection system in his penthouse of his hotel room so that he could have the movie running in a loop continuously. He really loved this show. And another strange thing about it is that Rock Hudson loved it too. He said that it's his personal favorite film that he's done. The movie really wasn't popular with audiences. It lost a substantial amount of money. It got a lot of terrible reviews, calling it an overblown production with poor special effects. All this being said, I still enjoy this film, and I somewhat understand Howard Hughes' obsession with it. I feel like if you've never seen this, you would enjoy the film. And if you have seen it, take another look at it. There's some great performances in it. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll continue to chase the classics.